In a nation built on constitutional ideals, but divided by racial injustice, the scales of justice were brutally unbalanced. For millions, freedom was a promise, but equality was a lie. Yet one man, armed not with a gun but with a legal brief, took on the system. He was a lawyer, a strategist, a fearless crusader, and ultimately a Supreme Court justice. His name was Thurgood Marshall, the legal architect of equality. This is the story of how he used the very laws of the land to dismantle segregation, case by agonizing case, forever changing America. Born Thurgood Marshall in 1908 in Baltimore, Maryland, he quickly shortened his name to Thurgood. His father, William Marshall, was a railroad porter who loved to debate, instilling in young Thurgood a passion for argument and a deep understanding of justice. His mother, Norma, was a teacher, emphasizing the power of education. Marshall experienced segregation firsthand, but it was not the violent Jim Crow of the Deep South. Baltimore's segregation was insidious, subtle, but equally pervasive. He attended segregated schools, but, critically, had parents who challenged him, pushed him, and nurtured his intellect. Marshall excelled academically at Lincoln University, a historically black college, but his ambition to become a lawyer faced an immediate, infuriating barrier. He was rejected from the University of Maryland Law School because of his race. This personal slight would fuel a lifelong fight against injustice. Instead, he enrolled at Howard University School of Law, a segregated institution that, under the brilliant leadership of Dean Charles Hamilton Houston, was becoming the intellectual powerhouse of the civil rights movement. Houston envisioned using the law itself as a weapon against segregation, and Marshall became his star pupil, his protege. After graduating first in his class, Marshall immediately put Houston's teachings into practice. One of his first cases was representing Donald Gaines Murray, a qualified black student denied admission to the University of Maryland Law School. It was a full-circle moment, directly challenging the very institution that had rejected him. Marshall and Houston won the case in 1935, forcing the university to admit Murray. This wasn't just a personal victory. It was a crucial early crack in the separate but equal doctrine established by Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896, proving that segregated facilities, even when seemingly equal, inherently caused harm. His success caught the attention of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. In 1936, he joined their legal team, eventually becoming its chief counsel. This was not a desk job. Marshall packed his bags and began a harrowing journey across the American South. A lone black lawyer venturing into hostile territory, he would drive tens of thousands of miles, often at night, arguing cases in segregated courtrooms, risking his life to defend African Americans against trumped-up charges, police brutality, and discriminatory laws. His legal brief became his shield, his intellect, his sword, and his courage. Marshall and Houston developed a brilliant, long-term legal strategy to dismantle segregation. They didn't aim for one massive victory, but a series of incremental challenges, picking away at Plessy versus Ferguson piece by piece. They first targeted graduate and professional schools, where the separate but equal claim was impossible to maintain. It was impossible for states to create truly equal law schools or medical schools for a handful of black students. Each victory forced states to integrate or establish absurdly expensive, inferior separate facilities, highlighting the inherent inequality. Marshall's work was incredibly dangerous. He faced constant threats, racism, and intimidation. There are chilling accounts of him narrowly escaping lynch mobs, having to hide in safe houses, or being driven out of towns under the cover of darkness. Yet, he never wavered. His dedication to justice was stronger than his fear. He understood that every case, every courtroom appearance, was not just about legal precedent, but about the lives and dignity of real people. By the late 1940s and early 1950s, Marshall and the NAACP Legal Defense Fund had laid significant groundwork. They had won cases like Sweat versus Painter and McLaurin versus Oklahoma State Regents, which chipped away at segregation in higher education. These victories demonstrated that even when facilities were nominally equal, the intangible harms of segregation, the sense of inferiority, the exclusion from the mainstream, made separate inherently unequal. This would become the bedrock of their greatest challenge, public school segregation. In 1954, all the years of painstaking legal work culminated in a single and monumental case before the U.S. Supreme Court, Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka. This was the ultimate challenge to Plessy versus Ferguson, arguing that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. Marshall led the legal team, facing immense pressure and the eyes of a nation. His argument was powerful and simple. Segregation generated a feeling of inferiority among black children, harming their motivation and development. This psychological damage, he argued, made separate inherently unequal. On May 17, 1954, the Supreme Court delivered a unanimous decision. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal. Brown versus Board of Education overturned Plessy versus Ferguson, declaring state-sponsored segregation in public schools unconstitutional. It was a monumental victory, a legal earthquake that shook the foundations of American society. For Thurgood Marshall, it was the culmination of decades of tireless work, a testament to his legal brilliance and unwavering commitment to justice. The decision ignited the civil rights movement, providing the legal framework for activism across the nation. But victory in court did not mean immediate equality on the ground. The South met Brown with fierce resistance, enacting massive resistance campaigns. Segregationists vowed to defy the ruling, leading to confrontations like the Little Rock Nine, where federal troops were needed to enforce desegregation. Marshall continued his fight, shifting his focus to ensuring the Brown decision was actually implemented. He argued follow-up cases, battling states that attempted to circumvent the ruling, reminding the nation that judicial decrees required consistent enforcement. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy nominated Marshall to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit. After a contentious confirmation process, where Southern senators tried to block his appointment, Marshall was confirmed. He served for 4 years, authoring over 100 opinions, none of which were overturned by the Supreme Court. His move from civil rights advocate to judge was a testament to his legal acumen and his ability to transcend partisanship. Despite his fierce commitment to justice, he was no longer just arguing the law. He was helping shape it from the bench. In 1965, President Lyndon B. Johnson appointed Marshall as the Solicitor General of the United States, the nation's top lawyer, responsible for arguing on behalf of the federal government before the Supreme Court. This was an unprecedented achievement for an African American. In this role, Marshall won 14 of the 19 cases he argued, further solidifying his reputation as one of the most brilliant legal minds of his generation. His journey, from a student rejected by his state's law school to the lead lawyer for the entire U.S. government, was nothing short of miraculous. In 1967, President Johnson nominated Thurgood Marshall to the Supreme Court of the United States. After another grueling and racially charged confirmation battle, he was confirmed, becoming the first African-American Supreme Court justice in history. For 24 years, Justice Marshall served on the nation's highest court, becoming a consistent voice for individual rights, civil liberties, and criminal justice reform. He often found himself in dissent as the court shifted right, but his opinions were always powerful, articulate, and rooted in his lived experience of injustice. Thurgood Marshall retired from the Supreme Court in 1991, passing away in 1993. His legacy is immeasurable. He didn't just win cases. He fundamentally altered the fabric of American law and society. He created a pathway for future generations to pursue justice, armed with the very Constitution he fought to uphold. From being denied entry to law school to sitting on the Supreme Court, Marshall's life is a testament to the power of perseverance, the force of legal strategy, and the unwavering belief that justice, though often delayed, can ultimately prevail. His lives in time proved that the promise of equal justice under law could indeed become a reality.